Hey, everybody, welcome to the Unconventional Guide to Nothing. I'm your host, Dave, along here with my co host, Greg. And it took me 3 takes to say our title, which is sad. So that tells you where our head's at today.
Yeah, we're burnout. Burning out again. That just after what was it, 3 episodes ago I was burning
Yeah.
out? Happening
Yeah.
again.
Like the sad thing is, I actually can say I actually don't feel like I'm burning out in general, but like that didn't really do me very well right there.
Like if you're watching on video, Dave looks extremely well rested and I look like I'm wearing a raccoon mask.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that, like I'm
I
sweating,
wouldn't
I
go that
think,
far, but yeah.
I'm having a hard time. But yeah, no, we're here. We're talking about we're taking it I don't know. I want to say down a notch, talking about
Take it down a notch.
maybe it's not like as such as like
It's not heavy.
it's not too heavy, but it is terrifying in a lot of
It
ways.
is terrifying.
And I'm curious like as to when that shift happened. So we're gonna talk a little bit about clowns today.
Yeah.
And clowns, they've literally
More than just these two hosts.
these I know. There you
Can I
go. Someone
can
had to
I
say it, right?
can I just share though? Like I never really thought about how funny our title is by just changing one word. The
Yeah.
unconventional guide for nothing. Like for nothing is probably a better title for us, more fitting.
It's like because there's no reason, also because we do it for free. There's just it fits in a lot of ways.
For no reason. Yeah. The unconventional guide for no reason. Oh
So,
boy.
Dave, we are a couple of clowns, I suppose, but this is nothing new. This has been something that's been around since ancient Egypt, you know?
Yeah.
The pharaohs had clowns. I wonder if they had the same getups. I don't think
Arrow
so.
the clown.
Pharaoh the clown. Yeah, that's
Well,
funny.
you know what's funny? Like you think of ancient Egypt, and I don't know
Mm.
why. Maybe it's like movie depictions, but don't you picture them wearing like eyeliner and things like that?
Oh yeah, they were
Is
very
that
much
is
into.
that's a
They were the original Goths.
yeah? So I mean, I guess thinking of a clown in that time wearing makeup isn't that far fetched.
It's not because you know, it's something that's what's interesting about clowns is like you have to it's entertaining because you don't know what's going on behind the facade, I think. Because like when you think of a clown, you've got like these exaggerated features like the really big smile, the sad droopy eyes, like whatever it is, there's something uncanny
Hmm.
about it. Right?
Sad
And
droopy eyes.
I see you making faces, but
No, I'm
hold
just
on.
thinking sad droopy eyes. I don't know that
Oh
clown.
yeah,
Really?
there's like
Oh,
there's
I know what you're talking about. I've seen like the painting.
Absolutely. That's a very famous clown. It's like Emmett something. He was like the original like hobo kind of guy. But Freud writes something about this and
Did
he
you just make that
says,
up?
"No, no, no.
That's
I
real.
did come across that when I was reading it. It was like it's not the original sad clown, but it was in like the right after the Great Depression.
Yeah.
He was, kind of active in like the 30s and then the 40s and he made his way to TV and everything. He's like did really good for himself. Shouldn't have been so sad. Um but like Freud kind of points this thing out that, you know, like clowns are like both creepy and familiar at the same time. Because those two things, like they're synonymous in a sense. They have to be intertwined. We don't know what the clown's thinking. We don't know how they're feeling. We see the huge smile, but it's inauthentic, and I think that really messes with people.
Hmm.
That's what creates the creepiness and the like what's really going on here factor. And Dave, I want to ask you, like, my dad, we've talked about this. I had a picture of a clown in my room growing up as a kid, and I was like, this is a horrible thing to have. Like, the light always
Hmm.
kind of hit it weird. There was a lot of religious imagery in my room always, and a clown, so it was kind of terrifying. And
What was the image? What was it
it
from?
was it was like a clown, but it was kind of like a chubby clown with a really white face and a red nose, and it was just like kind of him standing like side profile and he had a big gut. It was just and it was old. I could tell, like, my dad's not out there buying art.
Yeah. Was it like
Uh,
Norman Rockwell or something?
you know what? It's funny that you say that. It was sort of Norman Rockwell-ish. Wh- But what I think is, but it was terrifying to me. And I said that to him, and us being just that generation apart, he like that was fun for them to go look at clowns. Like that was comforting. They would
Right.
laugh and they would joke with the clowns. Like when did that happen? And I can't really find an answer where it took that shift from, hey, these are like these fun things for kids to laugh at to this thing that's really terrifying.
Yeah, it's interesting because you would think that there was like a maybe like a societal shift. And I
Mm,
think there's not so much an answer for that or like a direct correlation of like when people's views started to change about clowns and then like when clowns started to be perceived as or like shown like versions of them as more creepy. I will say that, you know, a part of that could have something to do with the 1970s.
what happened in the 1970s besides
Well,
sex, drugs and rock and roll?
there was also sex, drugs, rock and roll, and clowning around with
Oh, wow.
with a certain serial killer
Oh, wow. Okay,
who
I
would
know where you're
dress
going.
up as a clown and actually as Pogo the clown, and he would go to charity events and children's parties and also do stuff with children in his own home and then stuff their bodies in his attic or whatever it was.
So
And
what
that is John Wayne Gacy.
John Wayne Gacy was the that was children he was killing and stuff.
It was like young boys. He had a thing
Yeah,
for boys. I mean, they weren't like children, I don't think. We got to do an episode on Gacy. We always avoided that because he had all those specials, so we didn't want to do something while it was already like kind of being talked about a ton.
right,
But
right.
like he would be interesting to dive into because he was a charismatic killer.
Yeah, and something so horrifying about being killed by something. Anyway, because he's active in the 70s, so this is when children may have been thinking like, "Oh, this is fun." Like being killed by something sort of it's almost like if you had a stuffed animal and you were getting killed by it. It's like why Chucky's scary.
Yeah. Well, think
It-
about Gacy is like this exact juxtaposition that we're talking
mm,
about. In one setting, he's a clown, he's entertaining, he's making kids laugh. In another setting, he's terrifying. And
yeah.
he becomes this thing that we end up like creating other versions of. This like 1 minute it's sweet and you know funny, and the next minute it's terrifying.
It's that
Pennywise,
it's that like
right?
violation. We'll get into that. It's that violation of expectation.
Right.
It's when something like we've talked about with priests, we talked about police and teachers or whatever. It's when something has this role and sort of perverts the role, and that's what like pure evil is. It's like showing, you know,
Yeah.
like misrepresenting yourself. Mm,
So there's so many. I think the reason why we can't find like a definitive answer about this is because there's various reasons why people might find clowns creepy or scary.
mm.
So like there's this idea that we're talking about with Gacy, someone who takes this portrayal of a clown, but is like using it as like a mask for his evil doings, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of gives you this like undertone that like behind this idea is something really sinister. Then there's you know, other people might have some kind of trauma related to clowns, right? So there could be something that like happened to them at a young age or at some point in their life which causes them to have some kind of response to clowns. There's also this thing that you mentioned earlier about that you can't read them.
Can't read them.
They're wearing makeup that's you know, they might have a makeup that shows them having a smile but they're actually frowning or something like those that right. So it's this odd thing that you can't read their actual expressions and they're
Yeah,
wearing like
exaggerated features has become very
right.
useful as a trope. Like even that movie Smile, like when they
they,
over smile,
they over smile, yeah, it's
it's
creepy.
it's creepy.
It's
Yeah.
you know, but it all comes down to this thing that we talked about episode 1. It's
Uh,
uncanny valley.
sure
And
is.
for anyone who hasn't listened to that, you probably shouldn't. It was our first episode. We were no idea what we were doing.
No,
But it was
not much
entertaining.
has changed.
True. But like uncanny valley is when something looks or is supposed to be look human,
Mm.
but it's just slightly off, right? And clowns might be more than slightly off, but they are off. They look human, but they're clearly not human. Well, they're
Yeah, like
human, but
it's
it's off.
like Freud said, like that it's familiar but creepy.
Yeah.
So like it's like you recognize it and you just can't place exactly what's going on here. Like what exactly is wrong. And maybe when you're a kid, that's fine.
Right.
But like as you get older, it starts to be like, is that there's something in us that's like, is that a pathogen? Is that
Sure. But
is that
I
a
was actually
disease?
reading something that like actually some people who have a fear of clowns that actually starts as a child. So for some kids, it might be fine and they might be able to understand the premise of a
Yeah.
clown and like what its purpose is. But for other kids, it becomes unsettling to the point where it then starts to turn into something that creates a fear. So the behavior of the clown is like off-putting to them, or it appears almost manic or something along those lines,
Oh yeah, the laugh, the creepy laugh.
and that builds into something that can cause them to have fear of them. And a fear of clowns is called, do you know?
Yeah, I know.
Do
I
you want
don't
me to
know if I
pronounce
know how
it?
to. Yeah, yeah, that's the.
I think it's colrophobia.
Okay.
Do you know anyone with colrophobia?
Hey, look, when I look in the mirror, I see someone I think. I am not I'm unsettled by clowns. I don't love the idea of clowns. The first urban legend I ever heard was, I mean, can you indulge me for a second? I don't know if you've ever heard this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's the one with the babysitter. Everyone loves an urban legend. And she shows up at this house. It's a really kind of an extravagant house. And the father is a professor and he's really into like circus, like a circus burned down and he got really into it and he has all kinds of like artifacts and things like that. And so he's showing her around the house a little bit and he's like, oh, that's really cool. And they're really rich and they're going out to dinner and she's babysitting. So, the kids are, upstairs sleeping in bed and she hangs out and she watches TV for a while, but then she decides, I'm gonna go upstairs and just watch TV with the kids because I'm a little creeped out down here. A lot of like circus memorabilia, right? Which would be creepy. So she goes upstairs and she's laying with the kids, and then there's like this clown statue in the corner, and she's like, ugh, I just can't like enjoy myself. I wonder if like they'll care. I wonder if this thing's breakable if I like throw a blanket over it or whatever. So she calls the parents and she's like, "Hey guys, look, like I'm in the room with the kids. We're watching TV. We're all watching TV. They're asleep. And I just wonder if it's okay if I like turn or cover up this clown statue." And then she hears silence on the phone and they're like, there's no clown statue in
Oh,
this
I know
house."
this. I know this.
Right? And so, she obviously they're like, get everyone out of the house, and someone had escaped from a mental institution, and
Yeah,
it was the clown.
that's a true story.
Yeah, yeah. I heard that. My cousin's cousin told me that.
There's been a lot of things that have been inspired by that actual urban legend right there. So that's a classic.
It's a classic.
I didn't put it together until you got to the point where the phone call. I was like, I know this one actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
You might even
babysitter.
have said it before. Did you say it when we did our urban legends episodes?
No, I
All
don't think
right, then
so.
I definitely have heard that story like
Yeah.
verbatim. Um, yeah, that's you know what's funny though? Um, so I go to a lot of antique shows, things like that. There's some people who collect like Barnum and Bailey's circus
Mm.
stuff. I don't find that stuff off-putting at all. If you like look at the old cool like carnival, like Barnum and Bailey's circus, like flyers and posters, that stuff's cool. It's the clown aspect, like it doesn't always highlight the clowns. A lot of times it's like tigers or you
Yeah,
see like
tigers are
different
cool.
things. But the clown part is just not cool.
I know.
It's interesting. Like we did the episode on like um sideshow individuals, right?
Yeah,
Cool, right? Sideshow
totally.
individuals, they're interesting, they're fascinating, a little scary, but cool. Clowns, they're not really cool. So
No, and it's like it's weird to think of them having a life, a separate life, right? It's almost like I think that's part of it too, where it's like, what do they do when they go home? Do they have a family? Do they
did
take the
they
makeup off?
exist?
Yeah,
When we're
you know what
not
I mean?
around, do
It's
they
it's a
exist?
strange concept.
It's like isn't that what they always say, like dogs, if we're not around, do we exist to them?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
I think that about clowns. But it's interesting. I think it fascinates people that concept that you just said. Like, wasn't there a movie with like Bill Murray as a clown, and he's like, doesn't he like do a heist or something? People are probably gonna be like, what is he talking about? I'm
No, I
probably
don't know
totally
that
wrong.
one.
Oh, there's one where I'm trying to remember, but I feel like there's this idea that like outside of the costume and the like, we have a general idea that outside of what they're trying to appear as, they have a totally different persona.
Yes.
Like, I feel like that's our view that they're, and a lot of times, like if you see it portrayed in movies and stuff, it's always this idea that they're like miserable, like
Yeah. Yeah,
unhappy.
no,
Just
I think you're onto something there where it's like if on a normal person, a person who's not dressed as a clown, like you or I, like you see us and we're like, oh, I can read that guy a little bit. Like I kind of get that guy, I know a little bit about him. I have some insight into who he is just by kind of being around him and looking at him. Clowns, you don't get that, and I think that makes people uncomfortable.
it's and there's this. I feel like it almost suggests that there's a type of person who goes into the profession of
Mm.
clown business,
Like they're hard
right?
on their luck, right?
Right.
Yeah,
But maybe
yeah.
they just genuinely love the profession of clowning around.
You remember that scene in Uncle Buck where the clown shows up to the party and he's had too much to drink?
I feel like that's in every movie, like that
Yeah,
has a clown
absolutely. And
portrayal.
he's coming in and out of the persona. So he's like, I'm the clown. I'm like, he's like doing a little giggle. And then he's like, all right, come on, man. Like, I've had a rough night. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is unsettling because it's like you're giving me two different personalities at the same
Right.
time and I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I
We're
think that's
we're
interesting.
fascinated. Society, I think American society is fascinated with this idea, or just really stuck on this idea that outside of being a clown, when they're not, or sometimes even seeping into their performance as a clown,
Yeah.
people who perform like that have this other persona that's like usually drinking alcohol, usually miserable, smoking a cigarette somewhere
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
an alley. Like there is this like they
You know,
or it's just we find that to be like the funniest thought, I guess.
look, so I think another part of it is that like maybe kids nowadays or our generation is a little bit more jaded and we can see through it a little bit more.
Yeah.
We have like TV, we know that we can
Right.
be tricked, we know that there's things that aren't real. It's almost like, when you're at an amusement park and like Mickey's running around, you don't want to traumatize the kids, so you don't take the head off.
Right.
And I think that like what scares people about clowns is once they get a glimpse into, oh wait, this person's deceiving me.
Yeah.
There's something creepy about that.
It's true. Like, have you ever seen pictures of like Disney World people? Like, I saw like a
Smoking a
behind the
cigarette or
scenes one.
something.
They're smoking a cigarette with their
Yeah.
head off, and it's like the weirdest thing. You just feel like, oh, that's wrong. They shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. It does. Doesn't it feel? It does. You're right. Like it's like you're holding Goofy under your arm, so it's like you're decapitated, and you're like smoking, like eating peanut butter and jelly, and it's like
Eh,
I don't know what to do with this. And it's that thing. It's familiar, yet it's creepy. Like
It's yeah.
Freud's always onto something.
You're supposed to be seeing it in a certain light, in a certain
Yeah.
setting, and then now you're seeing it outside of that context, and it doesn't feel right. It kind of
Yeah.
feeds into that uncanny valley thing,
Totally.
but in a different way, right?
Yeah. Do you want me to
So
talk a little bit about like
yeah,
September 2016?
I was waiting,
Okay. Do you remember this a little bit?
of course.
Okay. So it kind of starts this way in Newcastle. It doesn't start in America. Police get a bunch of reports that there's a person running around in a creepy clown costume. He's jumping out of bushes. He's scaring kids. And it's like kind of terrifying. It's like when you go to like a haunted house or something like that, not an actual haunted house, but like an amusement kind of thing. And the people get close to you and you're like, I'm uncomfortable. Like, why are you still dressed like that? Like, why are you staying in character? It's weirding me out, right? So this is what was going on. These clowns, you turn around a corner and you look down an alley and there's just a clown standing there. And this is going on for like days, right? There's more than a dozen incidents reported. And then get this, Dave. The first person to have a real encounter was this 17-year-old girl named Morgan Bell. Now, you got to think about someone who has had a lifelong fear of clowns, terrified of clowns their entire life, right? I mean, just you know, it's got a name like you pronounced it earlier, and so that suggests it's like an irrational fear, right? A phobia is an irrational fear. And so she's like, all right, I'm living my life. I have this irrational fear. No one's really worked on it because who cares? A lot of people are afraid of clowns, like being afraid of spiders or snakes. Who cares? It's never really gonna like get in the way of my life. So here she is, 17-year-old girl, lifelong fear of clowns. And one night she's walking home and the street lights are shining on her and it's just dark and it's eerily quiet. And out of nowhere comes a clown. And this clown chases her home, chases her down the street, and she has to run for her life to get home. She runs and runs and runs. This thing's right behind her for
Yeah.
like a long period of time until finally she gets home and it's gone. She doesn't even know where it went. Insane. Can you imagine what that must have been like for that poor girl?
Now, think about this. Is there ever a time a clown is running and you think it's funny or happy?
No, I think it's that's the violation of expectation. Once it turns and starts running at you, you're like, whoa.
There's no reason a clown should be running. He should be
No,
tripping.
no.
He should be,
Yes.
yeah, he should be clumsy. He should not be coordinated,
I
right?
know the shoes are too
So
big. The shoes should be
there's,
too big.
yeah, that's actually would be super scary outside of a circus setting as well. Like,
That's the other part of it. What a great point. Like they're outside of the setting. That might have something to do with it too. Anyways, this 2016 thing, that goes all the way. It comes to America, but then like it
didn't
kind
it
of
like get heavy in Florida?
gets heavy in Florida, but people kind of sell it as, this is the time that the It remake was happening, and they were like, maybe it's a like a publicity kind of thing.
Marketing, yeah, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was
So
just copycat stuff.
copycats, lots of arrests, but Dave, obviously all's well that ends well, no big deal. That would be true if not for a 16-year-old boy in Reading, Pennsylvania, who was fatally stabbed by a clown. Now that's crazy.
That is crazy.
Killed by a clown. A real life killer clown.
Poor kid.
Do you endorse that movie, Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
Yeah.
Do you? I
I
remember seeing that as
oh
a.
it's I have the gun. the
You
little
do?
the little one of the
Okay.
guns from it. Yeah.
All right. Maybe something else we can get into. And this is kind of shifting gears a little bit, but the sad clown paradox. This is kind of, I bring this up because it's almost a mental health condition. And if you ever listen to a podcast, which I think there might be as many podcasts as there are people on the planet at this point,
Yeah.
but every single comedian has a podcast, and you see this with them where it's like people as children have had like, maybe they feel isolated, maybe they feel like they have difficulty making friends, but so they develop this humor, and that combats the mistreatment and the isolation that they suffered as a child. And they kind of, that like it's almost like comedians, and a lot of times I hear it like where they became funny out of necessity, and it's like they're really like a traumatized, like sad person.
So, I mean, we bring him up all the time, but like it's almost like Robin Williams,
Oh, wow, yeah,
kind
yeah.
of like being very, very funny in that, in his public life, but then also having like a deep depression outside of that.
Yeah. And there's wow, that's talk
I know.
about the paradox, right?
And
Like,
I think anytime you bring up Robin Williams, you immediately get hit with like sadness, even thinking
yeah.
about him, because
Confusion, sort of.
yeah.
I mean, that was the Lewy body dementia, right? Where like it robbed him of who he was too. So it was a really complicated thing. But people, I guess that's something that's scary about clowns and just putting on a face that's not your actual face in general. And I mean, you even mean that with like celebrities, and like I'm thinking a lot of like musicians now. I'm thinking of like the Linkin Park guy
Yeah.
and
Chester.
Chester, yep. And the Soundgarden guy. You're gonna help me out with a bunch of these?
Was that Chris
Chris
Cornell?
Cornell, yeah. So I mean, like these people who appeared to be, you would almost envy them. They're like, oh, they're in bliss. They're like they're living the best life possible, and then really their true face was hidden. And I guess that's
Well,
a different
it's
kind of
that
way to look at it.
idea that we really never know.
Yeah,
So like a clown does that right out in public with the makeup and their persona, right? But like these
yeah,
musicians, we assume they're living their best lives because they're popular, because they're adored by people. But like with a clown, we assume certain things just because they're showing those things to us.
hmm.
Like it's not like Chris Cornell from Soundgarden was out like we saw him like smiling and laughing and having a great time. I mean I didn't see that at least, but like we assume something about these people because of their status that they've elevated to, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But clowns, we like assume it because they're showing it to us. But like you said, I think over time we've become to like suspect that that's probably not the reality of it, or we assume this other version of them.
Is there something about us never knowing how people actually feel, and we're more comfortable with that concept than like seeing like a steady sort of fixed emotion on someone's face. Like having a
Yeah,
fixed emotion on your face for a long period of time is freaky.
I as you were saying that I was having another thought, but they kind of overlap a little bit. I feel like we're so jaded to believe somebody could be happy being happy and entertaining people and
Yeah.
just be okay with that. Like we assume there must be another version of them that's so like unhappy, right?
Yeah.
Like I think
Yeah.
we all assume that in order for someone to put on clown makeup and entertain people, they must be down on their luck, which like that's messed up.
Yeah.
Why are we so jaded?
I don't think human beings like big emotions in big doses.
And they definitely don't like people being happy.
No, not for any extended period of time. Especially not when they're happy. You know, when they're not happy.
Oh, you
You
know what?
know,
You know, I just thought of like a double layer.
what's that?
Um, was it Awakenings? No, 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 no. Patch Adams,
Patch Adams. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah,
Robin
that's
Williams
meta. Yeah.
as a clown
And a doctor.
and a doctor. But isn't that kind of crazy to think about the
Yeah.
layers there?
Yeah. He's also the genie. I don't know if that.
He was the he and the only genie, in my opinion.
Oh, I mean, no, just
Shots
no shade
fired to
on
Will
no shade
Smith.
on Will Smith. He's been through enough. But like, I mean, come on, no comparison. I
Classic.
saw that new Aladdin and I was like, this is a disgrace.
I mean, I didn't think it was disgrace, but like the original is so good.
I mean, maybe look, hey, maybe I'm biased because I was coming up with the original Aladdin, you know?
Yeah, I saw it at the movies several times.
Whew.
I can actually sing songs from Aladdin
Me too.
to this day.
Riff Raff, Street Rat.
Street Rat, I don't buy that.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh
It's
my
great.
god, that was pathetic. But
I know. I know. Hey, we're trying.
if only
So
we didn't just do that for all our
I
listeners.
know. I know. Dave,
That's
do you know who I'm talking about? Like, or can you imagine this? Like, if think like black and white, think early 1800s, think pre-Victorian era, and it's like the clown with the white, purely white makeup, maybe a little weird hat, and just kind of looking kind of sad.
the
Can you
little
picture?
top hat.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's like Perot,
Wait, is that considered a,
pyro.
a pot pie pork pie hat?
No, pork
Okay,
pie hat. Well, maybe a baby one, maybe a tiny one. Maybe one for a doll, which is what makes it kind of funny. Like everything's missized. That's where that started, right?
maybe.
But I hope I'm pronouncing this right. It's French, but Pyro is the original. They think the original sound clown, sad clown, and this was developed
I've heard of
like
him.
yeah, me too. And when you see the image, you're like, oh yeah, right. And it just kind of developed from like what they would have called a buffoon or like just this representation of people who are disenfranchised. So it became like this is when people became really found clowns really relatable, where it's like, hey, look, we're not part of the upper classes. We're just part of the status quo, like the alienated people, the sufferers, and just the observers of society. And it's funny because like even David Bowie, who's so awesome, like kind of had this quote where it's just a short quote and he says, "I'm Pyro," and it's this David Bowie saying that he's the everyman. He's just the sad clown, just like everyone else, just trying to figure it out. Like there is something about us that is like something about a sad clown that's relatable that we can all kind of be like, part of me is a sad clown. Like I'm trying to be the best version I can be. I'm trying to put on a face for people, but I'm just kind of like not feeling it inside. And
Yeah.
I don't know, isn't that kind of
It
describe us all?
it's it almost like represents another version of this is like when people say they're masking, right?
Yeah.
A
Well,
clown, a
yeah,
clown is a mask.
sure
It's
is.
it's that idea that we're putting on a face, but yeah, ultimately we're a sad clown.
And
You
sometimes
did?
it's harder and harder and harder to put on a face. And maybe like up until this point, clowns were strictly, happy and everything like that. But the reason the sad clown like sort of resonated so much is because it's like I put on this face and I don't even have to try to smile. I can just be in this sadness, but
Yeah.
it's like cathartic.
There's a singer or like a musician who goes by the name Puddles, the sad clown, I think. And he
Okay.
he wears that makeup as he sings. Like I think he does a lot of covers of like random songs.
So that's another kind of juxtaposition, like right where like a clown singing music, but like heavy music.
I
It's almost like
I don't know.
Slipknot-ish, right? Like Slipknot took off because they were putting on all that makeup and
Well,
weird
they do
masks.
masks,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, still, I mean, it's
Marilyn
all the same.
Manson had a lot
Yeah,
of makeup.
yeah.
I mean, that stuff was
I got one for you.
okay.
Billy Madison, my favorite scene in Billy Madison, when
Wait,
the clown falls, he's on like the giant stilts. I think it
yes.
was, and then they all think he died, and he goes, "Hey kids, I bet you thought that I was dead. But when I fell, I only cracked my head."
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. But you know
That
what? That
scene is
clown was
like
super creepy.
it was creepy. That's why I like that scene so much. It's like the way it plays out, and he's like bleeding, and they're like, "Ha ha, he fell," and they're all laughing, but he's dead. They think he's dead. It's crazy.
Well, I
It's a
like what's
crazy
happening.
scene.
I like what we're doing right now. Now I think maybe we switch gears and talk about the scary clowns in pop culture, and then maybe give them a quick ranking while we're doing this, like at the end, because I
Well,
think
before we do scary,
yeah.
I wanted to do a little something different with the not scary ones, but like also
No,
talk
please,
about
yeah.
like the some of the portrayal, because I think that at this point because of where society has started to go with their viewings of clowns, even clowns who are supposed to be happy clowns are viewed differently, like Ronald McDonald, who we talked about many episodes ago. I think we view Ronald different now than we did back in the 80s and early 90s.
You show me that Christmas commercial or
Yeah.
with the ice pond with Ronald McDonald,
Yes.
and
We
I
we
don't.
played that at that time
Yeah,
even.
I don't think that I'm super creeped out by him.
You're not? I think, but now when I watch him, I'm like, this adult clown hanging out with all these kids. It's just very, as
Yeah,
the
that's
kids would
true.
say,
That,
sus, you
yeah,
know?
no, that is sus now that you mention it. Yeah. I would have trusted him, and maybe that's
I
what's
would
scary.
trust it. You did trust him, didn't you, Greg?
That
That's the problem. You're coming to
is.
terms here.
Oh no.
Bozo.
I remember Bozo.
Bozo
He
the
threw the little
clown.
ball in the bucket.
So what's your thoughts about him?
Um, I never got it. Everyone used to
Yeah,
watch that show, and I
I
used to like,
never
I don't really think that this is good at all. But
I
they would,
see, and I'm kind of with you. I was never really a clown guy.
yeah.
It didn't do much for me.
No, I think that was just like held over for a little bit. Like people thought that that was still working, but it wasn't. And how many bozo? Here's another thing about this. Like,
It,
how many
yeah.
bozos were there?
Well, it was a franchise.
Yeah.
So you could, I guess, purchase the franchise rights for your own use. And
Ah, interesting. I
um,
didn't know that.
but do you know who owns the rights to Bozo currently? I bet
Slipknot.
David Arquette.
What?
David Arquette owns the rights to Bozo.
I can see that. He's a weird guy.
That's what people say. I met him just this past year, actually.
Really? What did you think?
Cool guy. Very cool.
You know, he mar
Super nice.
he was married to Courtney Cox i- in like prime, Monica time.
They were married
Yeah, for years.
beyond just like in Scream,
Yeah, Beyond and Stream. Yeah.
like in real life.
Yes, in real life. Yes.
Wow, cool.
I know.
How meta.
So, what do you know any more like not scary clowns, or have they just all become
Let me
scary?
see.
I'm trying to think of one that's not scary just off the top of my
I
head.
mean, I'm sure there's way more, obviously.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, no.
No.
No, I'm out.
There's one in Toy Story, but even he's a little, I don't know. I don't trust him. What about the this clown in Garfield was very
Yeah,
scary.
that's on. I'm trying to think of like some of those references. I don't remember that one.
Okay, yeah, it was in the Halloween special. Like in
I
Seinfeld.
should remember that one.
Seinfeld had a clown episode where it was like at an opera, and like I think it might have been just like the sad clown, like something there's some opera about it. But then we've got to talk about Pennywise, who I'm actually I'm not as big a horror guy as you, but I'm fascinated with Pennywise, like the origin, and I'm excited for this like series that's going to be coming out.
Very, yeah.
Yeah.
So the original Pennywise by Tim Curry, I think, definitely was scary to me as a kid. That was one of my early like influences of horror.
Hmm.
And like that that I feel like was super effective. Like they did a great job of like 1 minute he's like playful, the next minute he's terrifying with the
Yep.
sharp teeth, but he was always a little off, right? There was never a scene where you're like,
Yeah.
even when he's like talking, you as a viewer see him as off. In with the
You know
newer
what part of it
one,
was?
what?
Like it's a couple things. It's the voice,
Yeah.
and then it's also like even when he was talking and just kind of like, "Hey, Georgie," his teeth were kind of rotted.
Yeah, there was
Like
always a little something like
yeah, yeah,
dark about him. With the new one, there's some scenes where he's like tries to be playful and endearing to lure them in, and I feel like they didn't go that route as much.
yeah.
I like the newer one, but I don't find it to be like a scary costume to me. But I know other people find it very scary.
Yeah, I think they're both pretty scary. Tim Curry is just a legend and
And, oh, he's so good.
is
Bill
so good.
Skarsgård is a current legend, to be honest with you. He just did Nosferatu, and he looked very good.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
Is that a recommendation for the viewers?
Oh, absolutely. Nosferatu is a beautiful film.
Okay. So beautiful film is I don't know that I feel like you're masking something when you say that.
Yeah, because it's there's I mean it's got its flaws, but beautiful film.
Yeah, like
Check it
so
out.
cinema so it's like visually
Cinematography is
stunning.
amazing. The
Yeah.
setting is amazing. His look is definitely good.
You're saying it was slow.
Well, yeah.
Okay. That's
But
kind of
I
like
mean the original source is a 1922 silent film, which is
yeah,
also,
slow.
a little hard to watch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is probably the better version to watch if you're in current day.
Okay.
Um Terrifier. I didn't know
Yeah,
you were
so
aware of
I'm
Terrifier.
completely unfamiliar. So I know what the Terrifier. I know what Terrifier is. I don't know, like, sort of what his deal is supposed to be. Like,
So
is
he's
he?
actually Art the Clown. His name's not Terrifier.
Oh, is he
The
paranormal
Terrifier is a
or is
thing.
he human?
Yeah, we're learning he's paranormal.
Oh,
So
okay.
they've already done three. We're going on four next year, hopefully. Um,
How does it
yeah,
stack up to like Pennywise? It. What's the?
I'm a huge Terrifier fan. So
Is it gonna have a good origin story or?
we're working on the origin. So that's what actually I think made it really terrifying in the beginning. You have no idea why he's doing what he's doing, and
Yeah.
he's really brutal. He's vicious. Um, he's very animated, which I think works well for clowns.
Yeah, yeah,
You're gonna
yeah.
get a clown killing people. It's got to be animated. I think it's super effective as a clown and as being creepy and scary. So, but there's gonna that's probably not something I would say. Hey, listeners that like our
Yeah.
stuff, you should go watch Terrifier because
No, you're probably
it
right.
is
Because I don't. I think like
super gory.
brutal. The word brutal. I don't know. That might be much for me. I don't want
It's
to see.
super gory.
Yeah.
There's some, but it's like, yeah, right up my alley.
So you mentioned the clown and poltergeist, and when I think of that, it's like twofold scary because
Hmm.
it's in like a doll,
Yes,
which
it's
is
a doll,
creepy enough as it is,
right?
and a clown, which is that might be the maximum of creepiness right there.
And I personally don't find didn't get the effectiveness of it because I unfortunately watched Poltergeist way later in life when
Uh-huh.
I was not a kid. So it I'm sure it would have been way scarier as a kid. I'm
Yeah, but you were
also
you were never afraid of like your dolls coming to life as a kid?
my stuffed animals, you mean?
Yeah, I know. As soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, "Damn it!"
They were already very much alive to me and they were very friendly. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm also reading a wait, you can't see
You
it
just
anymore.
you just completely
I just
disappeared.
lost myself. You can't see it. Clown in a cornfield.
Clown in a cornfield.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Kind of. You can see it.
Oh,
Kind of. Part
wow.
two. Part two. There's three
How
of
is
them.
that?
Good. It's by a local author, actually. Well, sort of local. I think he's out of Boston, if I remember correctly. Adam Cesar. But
Okay. Well, that
very
sounds
good. He's an up and coming horror author. And actually, Clown in a Cornfield is going to be adapted into a film coming out this year. So
good for him.
be checking it out.
Good for him. That's awesome. All right, Dave.
And let me see. What else did we have?
I mean, not much left on clowns. But I think we had a pretty good conversation on clowns.
So, one thing I was going to share, and I'm not going to give specific details. I
Sorry.
did mention that someone could have a fear based on a traumatic experience.
Hmm.
And I actually, the reason why I brought that up is I work with someone who I don't think would ever dare to listen to this episode because they had an experience with someone who was in a clown costume. And they, yeah, even the mere thought of clowns would absolutely send them into a PTSD response. So it's interesting because there's layers there too, right? It's like
Yeah.
taking somebody's, like it happened to them when they were a child. So it's almost like you take their innocence by using a mask of something that a child might find like endearing or
Yeah.
trustworthy or playful,
Tale
and
as old as time.
you scare them by doing some kind of act towards them that betrays all of that.
Yeah.
And like that's sickening, obviously, to even think about. Like I'm
That's like grooming. That's what grooming is.
right, right. But then doing, yeah, grooming in the guise of something that a child is supposed to
Yeah.
trust, even more than just like as like a trusted adult. You're doing it in like something a child connects to.
Well, yeah, something that doesn't have the capacity to hurt.
Yeah.
It's almost like when what makes that scary to the world is like even in the original Ghostbusters where it's like think of something so like harmless that it could never hurt
A
you. And it's
marshmallow.
like yeah, and it's like that doesn't exist, which is scary as hell,
Yeah.
right? It's a scary concept.
So yeah, I wanted to throw that in at the end because it's kind of like another thing for people to think about when you think about why someone might have a phobia towards something. Well, there could be other reasons than just like, except for pickles. I never understand the pickle phobia.
There's a pickle phobia?
Yeah. There's that classic like Maury Povich, I think it was,
I thought you
episode.
were saying classic or a Clausen or a Velocic.
Vlasic, right?
Yeah.
Vlasic. But he's like, I think it's Maury Povich where he brings out a pickle or something. Is it? I think it's pickles, and the woman like starts freaking out.
Oh my God,
But
Maury
my
Povich.
friend, I have a friend who's like kind of got like I would say I used to think it was worse than it actually is, but he kind of has a pickle phobia, and we would always like throw like prank him with pickles and
Oh
stuff.
no, not anymore. So you knew that you were going to be an exposure therapist?
Yeah, I guess I always did.
I'm doing you a
So
favor. You need to look at the
yes,
pickle.
like
First,
throw it at him.
first let's think of the pickle. Oh boy.
All right. Well, that will wrap up our clown episode. Um, thanks for tuning in to these clown games, and
Just clowning
we
around.
just yeah, just clowning around.
Now
So
we're gonna pile into our little car and drive out of here.
beep beep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess thanks for everyone for listening and for any communication that you've had over the past week. We appreciate it. Kind of giving some feedback about things. If you haven't, I'm going to say the most annoying thing ever because I've said it 1,000 times already, but please leave a rating, review, like, subscribe, whatever it is on the platform that you are listening or watching on. We appreciate the support. We need the support. God knows we need it, please. But
Mm.
yeah, so thank you so much. And yeah, I guess we have been making an aim at trying to do some listener recommendations. I forgot to mention last week when we did motivational interviewing, that was a listener recommendation, but it was a great one because it was one that we actually was right in line with what we wanted to do anyway. So thank you for that one. And, if people have more, just let us know and we'll add them to our list and we'll do our best to get around to as many of them as possible.
Is clown a listener request?
No, that was a you request like 4 years ago. No, that was like one of the early ones that you had put on the list.
Yeah. Well,
That's
thanks
and
for
that
getting
just
around to
shows
it.
you that list is like extensive and we do our best to get to them, but like we're always coming up with
Yeah, we're not even
ideas.
getting to mine.
So yeah, thank you everyone. Have a great night. Have a great day. Have a great morning. Have a great
Hmm.
life.
Next stop, Clown Town.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
sorry,
yeah.
it's late. All right, bye.
Bye everyone. Good night.